Welcome to another Global Flow video. Buckle up, because today we're uncovering some jaw-dropping secrets about air travel. Ever wondered why airline food tastes so bad? Or which seat gives you the best shot at survival in an emergency? We've got the answers. So sit back, relax, and let's take off into the wild world of aviation. Hey, want to know a crazy secret about airplane drinks? Airplane water is actually not safe to drink. You know those flight attendants who are always offering you coffee and tea? Well, here's the thing. They rarely drink it themselves. And trust me, there's a pretty wild reason why. All the water they use for drinks, except bottled water, comes straight from the plane's onboard water tanks. And let's just say, those tanks aren't exactly what you'd call pristine. In fact, multiple studies have found that the water can sometimes be contaminated with nasty bacteria. Yup, we're talking E. coli. Not exactly the kind of surprise you want in your cup of coffee. It gets even wilder. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, those folks who make sure our water is safe, found that 1 in 8 airplanes failed their water safety tests because of contamination. I mean, seriously? So, here's a pro tip straight from flight attendants themselves. If you're thirsty at 30,000 feet, stick to bottled water. They do, and for good reason. The water tanks on older planes especially don't always get cleaned as often as you'd think. Next time that drink cart comes rolling down the aisle, maybe think twice before ordering that in-flight coffee or tea. You've probably seen it before, birds swarming around a plane as it takes off or lands. Kinda terrifying, right? But honestly, this is just another day in aviation. Bird strikes might not sound like a big deal, but they can do some serious damage when a bird collides with a plane at high speed. Just ask the folks on this Turkish Airlines flight from 2015. The passengers were fine, but the bird, not so much. But not every flight gets off that easy. In the US alone, there are over 13,000 bird strikes every year, and in some cases, they're powerful enough to knock out engines. One of the most devastating examples happened not too long ago in South Korea. On December 29, 2024, Jeju Air Flight 237, a Boeing 737-800 returning from Bangkok, was preparing to land at Muan International Airport when it struck a flock of migratory ducks. Within seconds, both engines failed. The pilots attempted to circle back, but the aircraft crash-landed without landing gear, colliding with a concrete barrier before bursting into flames. The crash claimed 179 lives, making it South Korea's deadliest aviation disaster. Investigators later confirmed bird remains in both engines, proving that a simple flock of birds had been enough to bring down a commercial jet. But why do birds even fly near planes? It's not like they're deliberately trying to pick a fight with a 200-ton jet. The truth is, birds and planes just keep running into each other for a few reasons. First, planes create powerful air currents that birds can ride to save energy. Free lift, why not? Then, there's the flashing lights and roaring engines, which can either confuse or attract certain birds, especially at night. And let's not forget that airports are often built near water or open fields, prime real estate for birds looking to nest or hunt. Sometimes, though, it's just pure panic. A plane comes out of nowhere, the birds freak out, and in the chaos, some end up flying straight into danger. So, how do airports keep birds away? Since you can't exactly build a fence in the sky, they've had to get creative. At Reagan National Airport in Virginia, they use cannons loaded with blanks to scare them off. Some airports take a different approach, draining ponds and replacing grassy areas with gravel, so birds have fewer reasons to stick around. In Salt Lake City, they've gone full farm mode, letting pigs loose to dig up and eat gull eggs before they hatch. Meanwhile, in France, Lourdes Tarbes-Pyrénées Airport has taken the cartoon approach, installing giant LED screens with massive googly eyes to spook birds of prey. Even with all these strategies, the skies are still unpredictable. And as tragic cases like Jeju Air Flight 237 show, sometimes all it takes is one flock of birds to turn a routine flight into a disaster. Birds aren't the only thing airports have to worry about. When extreme weather rolls in, a pair of googly eyes on an LED screen isn't going to do much. And one of the worst offenders? Hailstorms. These icy attacks can leave planes looking like they went a few rounds in a boxing ring. Take this flight, for example. The hail came down so hard that it left the entire nose of the aircraft looking like a crumpled soda can. The cockpit windows? So battered that the pilots could barely see as they made their descent. Luckily, they pulled it off safely, but the airline probably wasn't too thrilled about the repair bill. And then there's lightning. Some nervous flyers freak out at the idea of a bolt zapping their plane mid-flight, but here's the truth. It happens way more often than you'd think. In fact, the average commercial jet in the US gets hit by lightning at least once a year. Sounds terrifying, right? But thanks to some seriously clever engineering, it's not as dangerous as it seems. Before an aircraft even enters service, it goes through lightning strike tests to make sure it can handle the shock. The plane's exterior is designed to let electricity pass right through it, exiting safely through the nose or wingtip. So, while it might make passengers clutch their armrests a little tighter, the real casualty is probably someone's in-flight cocktail, now decorating their lap. And if the idea of pilots flying blind in bad weather makes you uneasy, don't worry, they do it all the time. It's part of their training. IFR, Instrument Flight Rules, is a system that allows pilots to fly completely relying on instruments rather than visual cues. This enables them to take off, navigate, and land even in poor visibility. So if you look out the window and see nothing but thick fog, relax. Your pilot knows exactly what they're doing. Got some time to kill before boarding? Take a look at your boarding pass. That random 6-character mix of letters and numbers? It's called a passenger name record, or PNR. It's how airlines keep track of individual passengers, especially when multiple people have the same name. But here's the thing. That little code is linked to a ton of personal info. Your boarding pass holds more than just your flight details. Airlines store your date of birth, contact info, and travel history in their system. If you booked online, it might even be linked to your credit card, passport number, and IP address. That's why tossing your boarding pass in a public trash can is a terrible idea. Hackers can use it to dig up way more than you'd expect. And speaking of codes, there's one you definitely don't want to see on your ticket. The dreaded SSSS. If those 4 letters show up, get ready for extra security screening. It stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection, and it means the airline or the TSA has flagged you for a little extra attention. Fun, right? We all know airport security doesn't mess around. But sometimes, things that seem totally normal to us can raise red flags for airline officials. Booking a last-minute flight, flying one way, or paying for your ticket in cash? Yeah, that might make security give you a second look. So if you ever spot a suspicious-looking code on your boarding pass, don't freak out. Unless, of course, you've got something to worry about. Ever used an airplane bathroom and wondered, where does all this stuff actually go? Well, despite the urban legend, pilots don't just hit a switch and drop it from the sky. But every now and then, accidents happen. When you flush, a powerful vacuum sucks everything away using minimal water. This helps keep the plane light and efficient. The waste then gets stored in a big holding tank filled with disinfectant, which is emptied once the plane lands. Sounds simple, right? Well, tell that to the people who've had chunks of blue ice crash into their homes. See, sometimes leaks happen, and when that waste mixes with the disinfectant at high altitudes, it freezes solid. If a faulty seal lets some escape mid-flight, you might just get a surprise from above. In fact, between 1979 and 2003, at least 27 documented cases of these frozen deposits have been reported in the US. Some even smashed through rooftops. If you ever see a big chunk of blue ice in your yard, just know, it is not a snow cone. Speaking of airplane bathrooms, here's a fun fact. There's actually a way to unlock them from the outside. Next time a kid gets stuck in there, or if you're looking to get kicked off a flight real quick, all you need is one finger. Most lavatory doors have a hidden latch behind the lavatory sign. Just lift it, slide the lock open, and boom, you've got access. Not that we're suggesting you try this, unless, of course, you enjoy being tackled by flight attendants. Let's be honest, airplane food has a pretty terrible reputation. But have you ever stopped to think why it tastes so bad? These days, your in-flight meal is prepped at massive catering facilities near the airport. usually 12 to 72 hours before takeoff. Instead of freezing, they're blast chilled, packed up, and reheated on the plane. Some high-end airlines like Etihad have in-flight chefs, but let's be real. Nothing at 35,000 feet is ever going to taste like a Michelin-starred meal. But here's the kicker. It's not just the food that's the problem. It's you. Airplane cabins are ridiculously dry, with humidity levels as low as 10%. That's drier than the freaking Sahara Desert. And when the air is that dry, your sinuses dry out, messing with your sense of taste and smell. After an hour or two in the sky, your ability to detect sweet flavors drops by about 15 to 20%, and salty flavors get dulled by up to 30%. To compensate, airlines load their meals with extra salt and sugar. So that tray of food in front of you, it's probably packing way more sodium and hidden calories than you'd expect. Want to make it taste better? Try noise-canceling headphones. Sounds weird, right? But research has found that the constant low hum of the plane's engines actually dulls your sense of taste. Blocking out that background noise can make your meal a little more enjoyable, or at least slightly less terrible. But here's the real irony. Airline food used to be great. About 50 years ago, meals were fresh, hot, and actually heated in real ovens on board. Flight attendants served dishes on actual plates with real cutlery, and service was a whole lot better. But as airlines started cutting costs, meals became mass-produced, pre-packaged, and, well, bland. And no, we're not talking about actual snakes. Being a pilot is already one of the most stressful jobs out there. Hundreds of lives in your hands, long hours, unpredictable weather. But imagine being stuck in a tiny cockpit for hours with someone you can't stand. Talk about a nightmare at 35,000 feet. Turns out, airlines take this problem seriously. In fact, pilots actually get a do not pair list where they can request to never be scheduled on the same flight as certain coworkers. Every month, they submit their list of flying nemesis, and the system ensures they never end up in the same cockpit. And this isn't just a matter of workplace drama. It can get ugly. In 2018, a flight from India to Dubai made headlines when two pilots got into a heated argument mid-flight. It escalated so badly that the captain left the cockpit in the middle of the flight, forcing the co-pilot to take control alone. The airline immediately suspended both pilots, but the incident was a stark reminder that tensions in the cockpit are no joke. Pilots need laser focus, especially during takeoff and landing. A personal feud could be more than just awkward. It could be dangerous. So keeping the snakes out of the cockpit isn't just about workplace harmony, it's about keeping flights safe. If only every job let you ban your least favorite coworker, right? Hollywood loves to make flying look terrifying, but here's the reality. Air travel is one of the safest ways to get around. Your odds of dying in a commercial plane crash, a mind-blowing 1 in 3.37 billion. You're far more likely to win the lottery or get struck by lightning than to experience a fatal crash. Still, a lot of people are nervous flyers, and one of the most common questions is, where's the safest place to sit? Well, according to a Time magazine analysis of 17 plane crashes over 35 years, the back third of the plane has the highest survival rate, about 68%. That's compared to 62% in the front and 61% in the middle. And if you're thinking an aisle seat is the way to go since it offers quick access to emergency exits, think again. Aisle seats in the middle third of the plane have the worst survival rate at just 56%. So what's the absolute safest seat? A middle seat near the tail with a 72% survival rate. Why the tail? Because in many crashes, the tail section breaks off and lands away from the wreckage, increasing survival chances. Plus, when a plane impacts the ground, the fuel stored in the wings usually splashes forward, engulfing the front and middle sections in flames. The tail, sitting behind the wings, avoids this firestorm. So next time you book a flight, consider choosing a seat toward the back. It might not be the most comfortable ride, but if anything goes wrong, you'll be in the safest spot possible. Ever scored a window seat and noticed that little hole at the bottom of the window? It might not look like much, but believe it or not, that tiny dot is doing some serious heavy lifting when it comes to keeping you safe in the air. Here's the deal. When a plane climbs to cruising altitude, the air pressure outside drops dramatically. To keep passengers comfortable and breathing normally, the cabin is pressurized, but that creates a huge difference in pressure between the inside and outside of the plane, and that kind of stress can be rough on the windows. A regular glass window wouldn't stand a chance, which is why airplane windows are built with 3 layers of super strong acrylic. The outermost layer takes on the brunt of the pressure, keeping the harsh elements out and the cabin airtight. If that ever fails, the middle layer acts as a backup. And the innermost panel? That's mostly just there to protect the other two from, well, passengers poking at them. But here's where the tiny hole, called a bleed hole, comes in. It's placed in the middle pane to regulate pressure between the layers, making sure most of the strain is on the outer panel. It also helps prevent fogging and frost buildup so you get a clear view of the clouds below. After all, what's the point of a window seat if you can't enjoy the view? Ever spotted those small red or black triangles on the cabin walls and wondered what they're all about? They're not just random decorations. Those markers actually show flight attendants the best windows for checking on the wings and engines. So if you're sitting next to one and suddenly find a crew member leaning over for a better view, don't stress. They're just making sure everything's running smoothly. Hopefully. But it's not just visual cues that keep things in order up in the air. Sounds play a huge role too. Frequent flyers will recognize this familiar chime. Most people assume it's just the standard buckle up reminder, but that little ding can mean a whole lot more. Each airline has its own system, but there are some common patterns you can keep an ear out for. One chime could mean turbulence ahead, or it might just be the pilot asking for a coffee refill. 2 chimes usually signal that the plane is passing 10,000 feet, a key altitude where crew members prepare for landing or cruising. 3 or more chimes? That's when things get serious. This could indicate a medical emergency, a technical issue, or that you're in for some seriously rough air. So next time you hear a bunch of beeps going off rapid fire, it's either time to panic or time to dance, depending on how much you trust the pilot. Crying babies, 0 legroom, and a seat that barely reclines, flying economy can feel like a test of patience. Meanwhile, first class is sold as the ultimate luxury experience. Private suites, champagne on demand, and maybe even some chocolate-covered strawberries. Sounds dreamy, right? But here's the big question. Is it really worth the price? Compared to business class, which is often the next best option, probably not. Turns out, a lot of the perks you'd expect to be exclusive to first class are actually available in business class too. Fancy multi-course meals served on real plates? Check. Plush pillows and blankets? Check. Even complimentary pajamas? Yep, some airlines throw those in as well. In fact, many airlines are phasing out first class altogether, choosing instead to invest in high-end business class cabins with private pods. And when you look at the numbers, it's easy to see why. Business class already offers plenty of comfort at about twice the price of economy, but first class? You'll be paying 6 times more than an economy ticket. For what? An extra glass of champagne and a slightly bigger seat? For that kind of money, I'd rather upgrade my hotel room and actually enjoy the luxury when I land. What about you? Hit like if you'd still go for first class, subscribe if you'd rather splurge on a 5-star stay, or better yet, why not go all out and treat yourself to both? You're on vacation, after all. Long-haul flights can be exhausting for passengers, but somehow, flight attendants always seem full of energy. Ever wonder how they manage to stay so alert? Well, next time you're on a long flight, keep an eye out for a mystery door that looks like a storage closet. Spoiler alert, it's not. Behind that door is a hidden crew rest area, accessible through a tight staircase leading up to a secret compartment above the cabin. These rest areas, usually tucked away in the overhead section, give flight attendants a place to catch some much-needed sleep. There's typically one at the back for the cabin crew and another up front for the pilots. Inside, you'll find bunk beds, pillows, duvets, and even seatbelts. Yes, crew members have to buckle up while they sleep in case of turbulence. The breaks are scheduled in shifts, and when it's time to wake up, a fellow crew member calls them through an interphone. Some airlines, like Singapore Airlines, take it up a notch by providing luxury sleep pods with silk pillowcases for their crew. Pilots, on the other hand, get an even fancier setup. Their private quarters often include 2 full sleeping compartments, business class seats, a closet, and a lavatory. Not too shabby for a mid-flight nap. But here's the thing. Being well rested in the air isn't just about comfort, it's a matter of safety. According to a survey by the British Airline Pilots Association, 84% of pilots admitted fatigue had affected their ability to fly, and 56% even confessed to falling asleep while in charge of a plane. And if that's not alarming enough, in May 2021, a pilot on a commercial flight in Australia fell asleep for 40 minutes mid-air and overshot his destination by 70 miles before finally waking up. Luckily, modern planes have autopilot systems to handle things like altitude, but let's be honest, knowing the person flying your plane might be snoozing isn't exactly reassuring. So next time you're wondering where your flight attendant disappeared to, just remember, they might be literally sleeping above your head. And hopefully, the pilots are staying awake where it actually matters. You've probably seen it or been part of it. The moment the plane's wheels stop rolling into the terminal, the cabin erupts with a chorus of clicks as hundreds of passengers unbuckle at once. Suddenly, the aisles are jammed, people are yanking bags from overhead bins, and everyone is standing, just waiting. Here's the thing. It takes up to 5 minutes for the jet bridge to connect before the cabin crew can even open the doors. So why the mad rush? Is it habit, impatience, or just a shared illusion that standing up will somehow get you off the plane faster? Let's break down why this ritual happens every flight and whether there's actually a smarter way to deplane. And there you have it, some of the biggest airline secrets you never knew. From hidden crew rest areas to strange boarding pass codes, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than meets the eye. Next time you fly, you might just notice a few of these tricks in action. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, because now you're in on the secrets too. Got any crazy flight stories? Drop them in the comments, and thanks for flying with us.